Here is Jim O'Brien from Conservation New Hampshire.
Thank you. Hello. Thank you, David. That was a very nice introduction. My name is Jim O'Brien. I'm the Executive Director of Conservation New Hampshire. And I figured I'd start by telling you three things about myself, which you could hold against me and then dismiss everything else I'm going to tell you from here on out. The first one is I'm a lobbyist, and that's sort of a dirty four-letter word in a lot of places. But I work in the legislature. My job is to lobby for environmental issues. And in many ways, that means I'm a translator. I'm not a scientist. I'm not an expert on environmental issues. I don't go and test water. I don't do field trips. I don't study animals. But I do take the work that they do and translate it to people like Robin, who we all know doesn't really know the science. I'm just kidding. But to try to take the work that's being done, the important work on environmental issues, and look at sound policy solutions and make compromises and do all the fun things that lobbyists get to do. But I haven't always been a lobbyist. I've had even darker secrets. I used to be a paid political hack, which is even worse than a lobbyist in many circles. And for this room, it's going to be even worse, because I was a paid Republican political hack. I ran campaigns for Republican candidates. I did work with the Republican Party. I'm still a registered Republican. It gives me some credit. But that's the second thing, which you could still like me as a person. But the third problem I have is I'm a Yankees fan.
Get out of here!
I'm a native New Hampshire person, but somehow I drink the water or the Kool-Aid or something, but I'm a Yankees fan, but it's okay to say when we're in first place. And I get the groans and the laughs, but I'm here to talk a little bit about one of the things Conservation New Hampshire does, maybe that's a better way to frame it, is we work with a lot of the other environmental groups, including the Sierra Club, the Forest Society, the Nature Conservancy, and we sort of get together at the beginning of a session, and we try to frame what are the most important issues that we're going to be facing the environmental community in the session, and really put together a priorities list. Try to list 4 or 5 of these things that, as a community, we can come together on and promote as a coalition, as opposed to a lot of groups doing and saying different things on a whole bunch of issues. And so when we met in October and November, our list was extremely long, and they were all defensive, which is kind of a problem. Because when you get a new majority elected, one of the things you look forward to is maybe they have some proactive ideas or things they want to promote. And unfortunately, we quickly learned that we were going to be on the defensive for most of the agenda, most of the session. Kathy's going to talk a bit about Reggie, which is probably one of the major issues. So I won't get into that, but I will hit on a few policy issues and start off with the budget. And most people who, and I'm sure all of you have read the newspapers, what's happening with the budget on environmental issues isn't jumping off the page at you. There's a lot of problems, most of which deal with people, most of which deal with Health and Human Services budget, which rightly so gets a lot of the ink and gets a lot of the press attention. But there are a lot of budget items which deal with environmental issues that are causing a lot of anxiety in the community. And when some of our colleagues on the far right of the aisle, not David, but the other far right of the aisle, think of the environment, they frame it as, it's either trees versus people. But these environmental issues, we all know, they affect people no matter what they are. And a lot of the cuts that are being made in the environmental budgets at the Department of Environmental Services have to do with water, and have to do with drinking water and how we recreate in water. I'm not going to touch on all of them, but a few of the ones that are interesting to me, and these are really, if anybody's ever dealt with the Department of Environmental Services, it's not a very huge bureaucracy with lots of people sitting around doing nothing, which I think is what the Republicans want you to believe is happening. But most of these positions are really really operated by 1 or 2 individuals. So if you cut the budget and you cut an individual out, you really just don't cut a staff member, you cut the entire program. And so some of the programs they're looking at cutting, one of which is very surprising to me, is something called the Well Water Program. And most people in the state of New Hampshire, if you don't live in a municipality right in the city center, you have a well. And so someone has to come and drill your well and you test it. So DES is going to have to cut the person who monitors not only those who come and drill your well, so they have to get certified and make sure they're doing a good job, but also those who are testing your well water. And so you could have an individual out there drilling your well who's not being regulated by the state and is also not sending your tests to the state. And this seems a bit short-sighted, but lakes and streams for swimming and fishing. It's called the Lakes and River Management Program. It's pretty much volunteers, and maybe some of you are the volunteers, who go out and you regularly monitor where you swim and where some of your water comes from. And at DES, the home base at DES, they have a few staff physicians who take that information and they make sure that your bacteria levels are fine. That position is being cut. And so if those positions are cut, your volunteers who are out doing the monitoring no longer have a point person to help you. And so it not only affects some of this monitoring, but in Hopkinton, we have a small little swimming hole. It's very nice and it's monitored by a volunteer. Last year we had to shut the swimming pool down for a few days because our bacteria levels were high. As a town official in Hopkinton, I'm a select board member, we no longer are going to have that, if the budget goes through, we're not going to have that cooperation with DES and know if we should shut this down or not. So as sort of an elected official, what do we do? And the one that you've probably heard here a lot on the Seacoast is the Shellfish Program. This is one or two members, I think it's only one person, who oversees the Shellfish Program. They make sure that the water quality is okay so that those harvesting shellfish are not going to have any danger of any environmental impacts. And so we have some commercial shellfish people who are trying to make a living selling that, and then we have 1,000 or so recreation shellfish people who go out and harvest clams. That program, because of the loss of the staff person, will be eliminated. And so both the commercial side as well as the recreational side will be gone. And another budget item, which shouldn't be a budget item, is the Land and Community Heritage Investment Program, otherwise known as LCHIP. LCHIP has been perennial on the chopping block since it was founded about a decade ago. And LCHIP pretty much is a grant program to cities and towns, a matching grant program to preserve open space and historic properties. I know Portsmouth has had several properties that have been preserved with the help of LCHIP funding. A few years ago, we set up a dedicated fund. One of the things that was happening is we, the advocates, would go to the legislature trying to get money for the LCHIP program. And every year would get less and less and less, and we would have some, and then the legislature would come and take it. So we decided, with the help of the legislature, that if we put it aside, we set up a dedicated fund, so the money would no longer be in the general fund of the state budget, so we wouldn't be competing for dollars, but there would be a stream of dollars going to a dedicated purpose, just to be used for land conservation. You would figure, voila, you solved the problem. But of course, the legislature being what the legislature is, has been consistently raiding that pot of money, so it's been less and less and less each year. This year in the budget, the House has pretty much eliminated the Land and Community Heritage Investment Program grant side. They've taken all that money and they've left about $120,000 to keep the doors open and the lights on for the staff members. And aside from what we all think about preserving open space, preserving land, and the value of LCHIP, I think we should question our legislators on what they're doing with dedicated funds. I mean, these dollars are being paid for. The LCHIP dollars are paid for when you go mortgage a house and you pay for a deed at the register of deeds. It's actually called an LCHIP fee. So when you go and you spend your $25 on the deed transaction, the state is telling you those dollars are going to be used for land conservation. Instead, what is being told is you're paying your $25 and that's now a state tax. And I just think that's a dishonest way of budgeting, and I think we should question our legislators, Republican or Democrat, who are trying to steal these dollars and steal the word, trying to use these dollars, really what they're aiming for, and come up with a more honest way to budget. The other issue that's I think really pressing right now, and it's been in the news, is the Rail Transit Authority. There was an organization set up that's not state funded. It's really volunteer driven, looking at bringing rail to the southern part of New Hampshire. We have rail in the seacoast. We want to bring a rail line from Boston up to the Concord area. And so we have a really dedicated group of volunteers who are spending a lot of time applying for federal grants, putting together the plans that make this happen. And really due to what I think is the chairman of the board is a Democrat. It's Peter Burling, who was an elected official for a long time. I really think for a lot of ideological and partisan reasons, the Republican caucus in the House has tried to dismantle this authority for really no good reason. Fortunately, the Senate sees some value in it, I mean, to stop, so I'm going to stop there. But these are the issues that we're facing. Most of them are budgetary, but a lot of them are ideologically driven. I think Kathy's probably going to hit on that on her topic,